Hey, welcome to this edition of the Peep Show Talk. And we have another vendor today, and I'm very excited because we have Nick Hopper from All American Manufacturing and Canvas. So before we get to him, let me give my standard disclaimer. I don't endorse any products, although I do have an order in with Nick right now for seat covers for my slat. And also, if any other vendor would like to come on, just contact me, and I'd be glad to put you on as well. So, hey Nick, how's it going up there in the Pacific Northwest?
It's cold and snowy, but not too bad.
It's not too bad right here. It's 51 degrees, but supposed to get snow on Friday night here. So it's middle of January if you're watching this like 10 years from now. Uh, January 2022. Okay, so why don't you tell us how you got into the canvas business?
So back in about 2008, I had a buddy of mine that he had a Jeep parts dealership for a little while and was looking for some miscellaneous parts to be made. My goal was never to really do canvas, but he was also restoring a Jeep at the time, and he asked if it's something I could do. So I, figured I'd give it a shot. Picked up an industrial sewing machine and made my first set of seats. So it was kind of more of a hobby for about 10 years. Just if I could find stuff to make, find canvas to use. And then about 4 years ago, 5 years ago is when I really started to dive into the differences in the seat cushions. And it just kind of exploded from there.
Mhm. How did you
Uh,
discover all those differences with between the early and the late and the Ford and the Willys and all that
so
stuff?
it's still a learning process. Lloyd White had a great article in 1993 in one of the Army Motor magazines, I believe it was. It kind of sort of spelled it out. That was kind of the start of it. That's what I used as my starting point. There's been a lot of data and a lot more information that's come out since then, but it's still kind of a guessing game on some of it. So we're still tweaking it as time goes. But that's kind of the basis. He did a really good job of starting that process, and I'm just trying to build on what he started.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm still learning, so that's the fun part of what I'm doing.
Hmm. Okay, so what was your first product that you actually produced? And what was that
So
like?
my
Just producing the first one and selling it? Because I know that's a big moment for, most people who start their own business.
It is, and I actually got to thank TJ Zachman for that, because at that time he was finishing up his 45 MB. I think it was Farrell Fox that got in contact with me, who got me in contact with TJ and said, "Hey, he's got a 45 that's got some original springs left and some parts to it. Let's see if we can work something out." And by then I was starting to I found a spring supplier to build me the springs that I needed. I buy those at about 3,000 feet per order. And so it just worked out perfect timing as I got bits and pieces in from other people's collections and with his seats. So his was my very first set that I actually built. So it was for a 45 MB.
Hmm. So that 3,000 feet, how many seats will that make, or sets of
You know,
seats? You just
so
an estimate so people understand the scope and scale of the materials process for running a business
so
like this.
yeah, so I'm a part-time business. I think I average about 20 hours a month, what it averages out to. And so I go about 3,000 feet of spring per year right now.
Hmm.
Probably 20 or 30 orders off the top of my head, but not every order uses springs either. So
Hmm. So maybe about 10 or 12.
yeah, if that, probably 15. It goes in spurts. I'll get guys that want the mid-series Fords, and I'll get a whole bunch of those. And then all of a sudden it'll be late 45 MBs, and then I'll get mid-series MB. So it's kind of weird how orders come in and how it just works out.
Hmm. Yeah, it seems like there's a pattern, but there's really no explanation for the pattern.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so why don't you maybe run through some of the some of the differences between them, just so people can be a little bit
So
more
there's
familiar with it.
basically, yeah, there's basically, if you look at both Ford and Willys to try to simplify it, there's three major differences. You got your early seats that had a zippered pocket in the bottom, and rubberized hair padding basically was used. Once rubber was taken out of the equation, then seat springs were added, and that's what I would call your second or your mid war. Still had the zippered seat bottoms. Willys put springs in the top cushions versus Ford, who stayed with the hair padding in the top cushions. and then you move into what we call your late war, and that gets into your exposed spring bottoms where there's no zippers on the bottom. Actually, here's a great example of an exposed spring set
Okay.
for a 45 MB. Same with their top cushion. Willys went to a wraparound tab system with exposed springs in the back. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of having your 3 tabs like you see on your standard Jeep cushions, they went to a wraparound that stayed with the CJs into the M series and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Ford, very similar, except they never used springs in their top cushions. It was only hair padding and with the
Okay.
3 tabs only. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Let me show your website. Maybe you can kind of talk through some of the stuff that you guys have. Can you see it okay?
Yep, nice. Yep.
Yep. Okay. So this is your web page, and
Yep.
just kind of go down through it, and it's got your about contact information and where you're at, which is near Spokane,
Mm-hmm.
Washington. So let's just go through your Jeep page here. There we
So I
go.
broke out, you got if you're looking for what we call the authentic seat cushions, we've got the broken out to the Willys and the Ford. So here we got the Willys and kind of the breakdown. I'm going to do some updating on the types there. As data has come up, I'm going to kind of make some changes to that, but that kind of gives you a basic idea of what you can order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so mine would actually be this very top one. Yeah, in
Very
fact,
type one.
I finished put one of the seats in primer yesterday, and I was working on the other one right before I got on the call, and then the rear seats after that. So I'm ready for the time you get the
Well,
order together.
hopefully here soon.
Yeah. So then you've also got this. Tell me about the new old stock zippers.
So recently I found a supplier actually overseas that has there's 2 types basically that we use. This is one of the later style. So we have those available, or I use a generic surplus military zipper that's very close in design, and I can show you those a little bit later. So it
Mm-hmm.
gives a customer an option if they want. It does cost a few bucks more to have the NOS zippers just because of the cost to purchase them versus a standard metal zipper that I can use also.
And what era are the new old stock ones? Are they World War II era? Are they
Yep. Yep.
50s? Are they?
Nope. They're 40s era. I think mid to late. If you look at some of the original cushions, this design was used mid series and later.
Mm-hmm. And those are all good. There's no like dry rot or anything on them that you can find.
No, they tell me that they're new old stock, but they're in beautiful condition. I've yet to find one that has any problems at all.
Okay, I may have to upgrade to that. We'll have to see. We'll have to see when you finish it and the money flow at that point. So, looks like you also do crash pads, covers, or brackets.
Yep. So you can order every set comes with the pad and the fill. If you want to add the bracket, you can add those, or if you want me to attach the bracket, I can do that for you prior to shipping it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Let's go to the Ford page. So now we're on the Ford page, and looks like there's what, 3 types?
Basically, yep, 3 types. You got your early, mid, and late.
And wow, looks like the late ones are quite a bit more pricey.
Yeah, it's very similar to the MB set at 1200. But they used a completely different set of springs, whole different design that was built by Ford instead of using this spring company that Willys used during the war.
Okay. And you've also got the crash pads for those. And then you've got what, the generic cushions? Explain those.
So those are kind of what everybody else sells. They're just a generic foam filled that looks similar to just a generic pad. So it's for those that are more budget minded. They don't really care about the authenticity of it and just want something to put in their Jeep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and I think there's a real opportunity within the canvas area right now. I think one of the canvas producers has stopped taking new orders. I think one is very hard to reach, and I think probably the biggest one here in the States is pretty good at the basic stuff. But again, I ordered a top for my WC8, and it took me 14 months.
Yeah.
And a whole comedy of phone calls, emails, and things like that. But I have it. I finally have it, and it
Good.
was what, $1,200, $1,400, something like that. So it looks like you've expanded also into half tracks.
Yeah, so I've last year was a pretty good year for people wanting half track. So we do each half track is different. So I got to work with the customer on exactly what seat cushions they need, what back cushions they need, size wise. So I don't have an order form necessarily. Just kind of email me with what their needs are, and then we work out a price from there. But yeah,
Mhm.
they're different. They're fun. You know, it's always kind of fun making different items than just one thing.
How different are they than Jeep seats?
They're kind of depends on the design. Most of them are just an empty pocket seat cushion for the
Okay.
bottoms. So I don't know if it's more for like storage of blankets and things like that. So they're kind of a simple, really simple design.
Okay. Okay. So what else are you thinking about getting into? Oh, it looks like you have the G506. Almost missed that one.
That is the next thing. I've picked up the right machines I need. I've got the material. I just need the time to get to making them. I've got a couple originals to use as guides, plus some design stuff. So those are my next. Hopefully this year I'll be able to get into making those.
That's great. Yeah, I love the G506. I think you get like the best of the big army truck without having the big of an army truck.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to restoring my 42 here soon.
Yeah, I had one that was made in, I think, early December 1940,
Ah,
and I stupidly traded it off.
uh,
So, the one that got away, and I went to North Texas. So if anyone's got it, I'm sure it's probably in better condition than when I actually got it. Do you want to do some show and tell? Kind of show us some of the stuff
yeah,
that you've got,
absolutely.
stuff you make.
So the first one we'll do, I'll show you the difference in the zippers. Um, so this, I don't know if
Okay,
you
let
can
me get
see
out
it,
the
is the,
screen share.
okay,
There we go.
there we go. So this is the generic zipper. It's just a metal tooth zipper.
Hmm.
But this is the NOS
Oh,
design.
put them
So,
side by
from a
side
look,
so we can kind of see them.
yeah. So
Oh,
it's a good looking zipper. I know some of the canvas guys over the years have used plastic in place.
hmm.
So I try to get something that's close. It's more economical for a customer versus the NOS. And I don't know how long these will be available. I
Right.
order as many as I can when I can. So, but again, it's since they're new old stock, they're going to run out eventually.
Hmm.
Um, I build all the springs that I use in my process. I build on site, so I get them. I bend them into shape. So probably hard to see, but this is for a back cushion for a Willys MB
Hmm.
late series. So I build those, and eventually, like we showed earlier, they get turned into a seat cushion.
Hmm.
So that I actually really enjoy the manufacturing part just as much as I do sewing everything together. So
Hmm.
uh, the half track seat cushion is just basically a square with a zippered pocket that's empty. The customer fills with what they want. So it's a very simple design
Hmm.
that they had. They're say a
I've
very
always kind of wondered that because a lot of times in half track pictures, you'll just see the seat cushions are just sitting there flat. I never quite
yep.
understood why. That explains
Yeah,
it.
I guess I never really asked the question, but they've sold well, so I'll keep making them.
There you go.
So this would be a Willys MB zippered cushion. So this has the generic metal zipper versus the NOS zipper. The biggest thing you can tell versus a Willys and a Ford is how the side stitch is. Willys side stitched it versus Ford had a top stitch across it.
Okay.
That's a dead giveaway in any photos, seeing where that stitch is. If it's on the side, it's Willys. If it's on the top, it's a Ford.
Okay. Cool.
Um, Same with the hip crash pads. They were actually both for Willys and Ford. They were side stitched versus top stitched that some manufacturers make today. So that's kind of some of the stuff. Sadly, as I build them, they go right out the door. I don't get to sit on any of this stuff since I'm so backlogged on orders right now.
Hmm. So let's say I ordered something today, mid-January 2022. Like, when do you think you would actually be getting
So
around to
I'm
making it? Like, let's just say a
yeah,
typical mid-series Jeep cushion. set?
So I try to do orders as I receive them. So
Mhm.
because the winter months are kind of my busiest for sewing, as I'm really starting to ramp up right now. It's where I'm getting put a lot of time into it. But my wait period, because of the amount of orders, is roughly 8 to 9 months.
Okay.
So I tell a lot of customers, canvas is an investment. This isn't something you should wait to the last minute to buy. You should put this in your queue as you're restoring your Jeep and know that this is an investment you're making that should last the life of your Jeep if it's taken care of.
Yeah, I know the stuff that's on my GPW, which is in the background there. That's Beechwood from 2001,
Mhm.
2002, and I mean, it shows wear on it, but it's not
Yep.
worn at all.
Yeah.
And the canvas top, same story.
Yeah. We're on my dad's 43 GPW was stored back in the early 90s, has a set of Weeby webbing that still look great to this day.
Hmm.
So, yep.
Yeah, good. So where do you see this going in the future? You said this is a part-time business, and it sounds like there's some demand there. But
It is.
I guess you want to keep it part-time and stay busy, or do you want to jump in the deep
My
end?
goal no, my goal is to eventually go full time. There's a demand as some of the manufacturers in the US are starting to age out of this and retire, there needs to be somebody else coming up behind. And there's kind of a vacuum also here. There's not a lot of people making large truck stuff in the US. You got to go
Mhm.
outside the US to try to find it, or go through one of them that can sometimes take a very long time to get at some really high prices. So as I look at doing the G506 stuff and get into I've got stuff for the 2.5 tons that I eventually want to do. I got weasels. I've got guys I'm actually working on, I think it's the MT tug, which are what, 15 of those made.
Mhm.
So I like some of that oddball stuff too, because nobody's really, a lot of these guys won't do off the wall stuff. And so it's kind of a challenge for me too.
Mhm.
So it's cool.
Wow, that sounds like you've got it going on there. I'm very excited to get my covers from you at some
Mhm.
point. I think I ordered them what 3 months ago, so that would put
Yeah.
me sometime this spring,
Yeah.
which
We're getting
is
close.
which is about perfect. And like I say, I'll have my seats done this weekend, so everything is coming together on those.
Well, fingers crossed we can get you done sooner. We'll see how it
Uh,
goes.
Whatever, like I say, it's once they come in, I'll just put them on the seats, and they'll probably sit there for another 6 months, anyways. But like I said, I try and get the when I was lining out the things that I wanted for my project, the first thing that I thought were, okay, what are the unique things? I always try and buy the most expensive and unique things for it,
Yeah,
because if if you wait till the last minute, you may not find them, and
exactly.
or there may be a delay or whatever. So like my short windshield, as soon as that came into supply, I bought one.
Hmm.
Things like that. Just the generic stuff I'm not as concerned about, but
Yeah.
yeah, well, I'm
And one
excited
thing
for
that's
you, and I'm excited to see your seat covers, and I'm really glad that we've got more people coming into the business, and it seemed like you're doing a good job. Is that your sewing machine there on the right?
Yeah, so this is my main machine. It's industrial from about the 40s or early 50s. It's a long arm 30-inch single needle, just a regular lock stitch machine. That's kind of one of the things with what I do is not just I look for this equipment that they used during that time. I've got a Singer over here that was actually the same style used by Ford in their canvas division. And so, I use that. And I don't know if we can see it.
Mm-hmm.
You can look just right over there is a 40-inch long arm, what they call a chain stitch machine.
Mm.
And the purpose of that is for doing things like tarps, tents, truck covers. The stitch is a little unique because it doesn't use a bobbin like a normal sewing machine. It uses two spools of thread. And by doing that, the top of it looks like what they call a lock stitch, your normal stitch that a sewing machine does. But if you look at the back of it, little tiny chains of thread. And so that's the biggest difference. So your canvas for your truck tops, your tents, all use this type of machine because you can sew long distance without having to change a bobbin out. So
Mhm.
that's one of the machines. The reason why I picked that up was to be able to do the same type of stitching that they used back then.
Mhm. I think you and Rollin from at the front could have like hours of conversation about sewing and stitching and things like that. Do you ever think in your entire life that you would kind of be doing this? Is this something that you were interested in, or is it just something you kind of fell into and found that you loved?
Kind of fell into. I mean, I remember, I think my earliest recollection of actually enjoying sewing was probably in junior high in home ec class. But it wasn't until later when I had a friend ask me to make them something that it kind of looked like a way. Well, I can make a few bucks to restore my Jeep. That was kind of the end goal originally, and then it just meeting Farrell Fox and his in-depth research on stuff, and then we realized that we were a great team together. He had more interest in the tops and other things, and seats have kind of been an interest because I wanted an original set for my 45. Nobody was making them, so that was kind of another reason why I wanted to do it, and then just fell into place with TJ. So it was just kind of perfect timing over the last 5 or 6 years to
Hmm.
get me to where I'm at now.
Yeah, so you're the third of those three that I'm talking to. So
Yeah,
I contacted Farrell first. I'm like, oh well, we'll see if he wants to do this, and then I went to TJ, and now I'm working my way
yeah.
back through you. So yeah, you guys are doing a great job, and the amount of research and things that you've done are just so helpful. And it just amazes me that my Jeep just had its 80th birthday about 6 weeks ago, and we're still figuring things out on them.
Yep. Yeah, it's just crazy to think after all this time and all these Jeeps that have been restored over the last 40, 50 years, and we're still finding out new things.
Right, right. It never ceases to amaze me. So, okay, anything else you want to talk about before we head out here? Or
No, I just appreciate the chance, and again, I try to let everybody know that these don't get done quick. It's a long process, and just because of the interest in them has really extended that time. So I do appreciate everybody that has waited so far, and so far our business has been good, and everybody's enjoyed what they've got.
just one quick
So
question: how long does it take you to make a set of seats, roughly?
you know, it,
Depending
if
upon the
I can
type.
spend, yeah, I mean, 4 to 6 hours depending on what I'm making. So it's not too bad.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, hey, thanks for zooming with me today, and I'm sure everyone will enjoy this. And I'm looking forward to getting my seat covers here sometime in the future.
Absolutely.
So, hey, thanks, Nick, for calling in. And, this will conclude
Yep.
this episode of Peep Show Talk, and we will catch you on the next one.